Let's go surfing now, everybody's learning how. Come on a safari with me. Come on a safari with me. Early in the morning we'll be starting out. Some honeys will be baking the scene. I loaded up my woody with the boards on top. And my faded blue jeans, cause we're a safari, baby. I'm gonna take surfing safari. I'm gonna take surfing safari. Yes, I'm gonna take surfing safari.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. I am told that that song does have a relevance discussion today. I will leave that to Don to explain that a little bit.
We'll get to that a little later.
Welcome back to the Atheist Experience. I'm your host, Ashley Perrian, and my co-host this week, Don Baker. Welcome back yet again.
Yeah. This is my normal show. Last time I was filling in for someone who couldn't make it.
Exactly.
For Russell.
Exactly. Good to have you there. We are live today, June 27th, and we're being sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin, a nonprofit educational organization promoting positive atheism and the separation of church and state. We have weekly meetings every Sunday at Crescent City Beignets, which is on 6th Street, a couple blocks west of Lamar. That starts at 11:30 or thereabouts and goes basically until we all decide to leave, usually a couple of hours. That's every Sunday, save the third Sunday of every month when we have our lecture series at the Austin History Center on 9th and Guadalupe. That starts around 12:30. I believe it was last week, and we just discussed some ACA business. Is in a month, well, the third Sunday of July. I can't remember who the actual speaker is, but it's a lawyer coming in, or attorney, from the ACLU, I believe. And they'll be talking about something regarding church-state separation, but exactly what, I'm not positive on. As soon as we know something, we will let you know. Other activities that we regularly do, every Thursday we have Atheist Happy Hour at Antonio's Tex-Mex, which is on the southbound feeder of I-35 just south of 1-3. That starts at 7:30, and it's a pretty decent turnout lately. It's an excellent thing. Like to just hang out, talk, have beers, have Mexican food, basically chit-chat. It's a good time. That's every Thursday at 7:30. Also, every other Saturday, we have our internet audio show, The Non-Prophets, which is hosted by atheistnetwork.com. It's a streaming MP3 file every other Saturday, the next one being this upcoming Saturday, July 3rd. And that is just atheist news, reviews, and gossip and talk. Hour and a half, excellent show, 2 to 3:30 if I didn't say that. And I believe that is it for our normal scheduled announcements. Anyway, again, this is the Atheist Experience. We are live today on Sunday, and we are going to be getting callers a little bit later. First, we're going to go to Don Baker to please explain our music of the day.
Well, I think I'm going to leave people in suspense and get to that a little bit. We haven't converted the Beach Boys to atheism or anything like that. We're not making any claims to that effect. But American surfing is sort of the theme for that. And anyway, but today's show we're going to talk about the rapture, or the end times, the end of the world, and how a lot of Christians, a surprising number of them, view what's going to happen, and how that affects us in the United States. It turns out, you know, you kind of take a first glance at some of this stuff, and it's rather kind of scary and kind of creepy and kind of goofy, and you wonder whether anybody takes this seriously. And apparently, a lot of people do. And I think that's one of the kind of lessons out of the show today is that we sort of have to take this seriously, even though it's junk, in my opinion. Yeah, so much nonsense, because a lot of people believe it, and a lot of those people are in effect dealing with it. So we have this rapture thing, right? So this is effectively about Christ's return, right? The return of Christ. And this was prophesied in the Bible, in Revelations and other places, and I guess I want to start out by saying that Christ said he'd come back, but he said he'd come back real soon, and real soon.
That was 2,000 years ago.
Yeah, behold, I come quickly, that sort of thing, and so. A lot of the people that believe this are biblical literalists, so they take every word quite seriously, but they're happy to kind of skip over this part. or gloss over it or whatever. And so we have Jesus is probably promising to come back real soon. He doesn't. So I consider that a false prophecy or something to.
Well, his time frame's off, if nothing else.
Right, right. There's another related prophecy that's worth mentioning too, and that is God giving the covenant with Abraham, giving the lands of Israel,
yes.
which at that time encompassed a lot of the Middle East, to the Israelites, in effect, that wasn't upheld because they all disbanded and left there, went their separate ways or whatever. And this plays heavily into this whole thing too. So we have the Old Testament Abraham story and the New Testament Jesus returning, and both of these kind of flow into this rapture idea. So we have in the rapture there's a lot of related ideas here, and I'm going to try to explain it as best I understand it. We have this notion of dispensationalism, which is a belief that the Bible can be broken up into 7 different ages, and we're living in the 7th age, and the end of that age will be punctuated by Jesus returning.
Okay.
It's also called, there's a lot of debate about the details of that. You also hear the term millennialism, which refers to the 7th age. That Jesus is supposed to return. So these ideas were kind of born in the early 19th or late 19th century by a guy named John Darby, and became fairly popular in the early 1900s in the Scofield Reference Bible. Cyrus Scofield kind of made this popular. In the 70s, we saw Hal Lindsey's The Late Great Planet Earth that really brought this out and kind of tried to relate it to a lot of the politics that was going on at the time. At that point, I think they equated Satan with the Russians, because the Cold War was still kind of very much in effect there. And now more recently we have Tim LaHaye and Jerry Jenkins with their Left Behind series promoting it yet again. And really bringing it into the popular culture. So that's this dispensationalism. There's another related idea that's called Christian Zionism, which is basically, Zionism is the idea that the Jews should have a homeland, which is not horribly controversial, but the Christians' approach to it is that the Jews should have a homeland because the Bible says that the Jews have this, we're given this land by the covenant.
It was prophesied on the Bible, therefore it's going to happen.
Right, right. So. And you see these guys promoting this, and it's turned into a very strong movement in the United States where we have these Christian Zionists influencing our policy with Israel, and basically, Israel is sort of untouched. We send a lot of money there. We help them in a lot of ways. And any discussion against that idea is that it is turned into it's called anti-Semitism. That if you don't buy into this idea, you are basically one step away from a Nazi or whatever. So that's going. There's also a strong part of Christian Zionism, a strong movement to convert Jews to Christianity. Because although it's their homeland and all that, and a necessary step to rapture, which we'll talk about in a little bit, they have to be converted to Christianity. Otherwise, they're going to just burn before Jesus comes, because it's all about Jesus, and anybody who's not converted is not in the picture. Doomed, absolutely. A third idea is called dominionism, which I know a little bit less about, but it's the idea that Christians should seize the world and manifest God's power before the world, and the idea that Christians should take over the world and influence the world, and a lot of these people think that this plays into this Christian nation myth, which I've talked about in a previous show. That's the United States' responsibility to go and sort of spread the gospel and conquer if necessary.
Well, the way you word it there almost sounds like use force if necessary.
Absolutely.
Show them the power of the Lord.
That's right.
Via nuclear bomb.
Yeah, our power, our arms, our arsenals are in effect God's power.
The finger of God.
Yeah. So we have a lot of sort of creepy ideas. You can kind of start to see how this is shaping up and potentially influencing things. Now let's talk a little bit about the rapture itself. There's sort of two main things that are very important. One is this notion of the rapture where and a lot of people sort of visualize it as Christians or people who believe in Jesus and very, very strongly believe it will be whisked up to heaven. And you have the notion of maybe floating nude bodies going up because their clothes stay, their false teeth stay, their prosthetic limbs, anything artificial.
By Left Behind.
Right. Contact lenses will all stay back. Yeah, and you definitely see this in the Left Behind series, although it's got a G rating in the sense that you don't see any nude bodies, you don't hear anything about nudity, right? It all happens overnight, and nobody's quite aware of.
Well, we actually, just a little side note here, a year or two back we had an ACA party where we all got together and we watched the first movie. I think there's only one movie.
That's right.
Or are there multiple movies now?
There's just one movie, I'm sorry.
Okay.
There's lots and lots of books.
There's like 10 of them or something like that. But yeah, the first book is actually made into a movie, and we all sat around and watched that, and basically how they showed it happen was just everybody's on a plane, and then, somebody wakes up from from their nap on the plane, look over, and they just see this shirt and a pair of pants and a pair of glasses sitting on the seat next to them, and it turns out like over half the plane it's just these little piles of clothes in the seats.
Right, right. Yeah, and that shows up in the books as well.
Yeah.
And although the movie didn't get a whole lot of popular acclaim or whatever, don't discount that. I mean, these books are very, very popular.
The books are doing well.
The books are doing well. They've sold 50 million copies of the books if you add them all up, which is a huge number. And they've also have a series for children, so there's a Left Behind for kids, which is I read one of those books, and it's definitely brainwashing.
Wow.
If I say so. So this rapture idea, coming from an atheist perspective, is pretty laughable, right? I mean, what use does heaven have for warm bodies, right?
Yeah.
Where Are they going to make them into Soylent Green, or and feed them to somebody, or are they going to separate the souls from the body and plug the bodies into some sort of matrix thing and draw energy source from them? Or I don't know, right? I mean, I always thought that heaven was kind of supernatural, and
exactly.
and the material world had nothing to do with it, right? Yeah. So. Who knows? So you can make a lot of fun of it. In fact, there's this rather funny parody. We've seen a lot of parodies, right?
Don't know if you wanted to get into the story, but
yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
This is actually a story that originated in August of 2001, and it came out on Religion in the News, which is a site that collects articles, but they say on the site that some of these stories are really true. See if you can figure out which ones they are. So they're not claiming to be the CNN of the religion or anything like that. Some of the stuff is just plain false. This is one of those stories, but apparently lots and lots of people got hooked into it because I got this off of Snopes, Snopes.com, which is one of these debunking type sites. But anyway, the article...
Urban legends and all that.
Exactly,
right.
Urban legends and such. I'll just read a couple snippets of the article here. A Little Rock woman was killed yesterday after leaping through her moving car's sunroof during an incident best described as a mistaken rapture by dozens of eyewitnesses. The woman, who was apparently convinced that the rapture was occurring when she saw 12 people floating up in the air and then passed a man on the side of the road who she claimed was Jesus. She started screaming, he's back," and climbed right out of the sunroof and jumped off the roof of the car, said Everett Williams, husband of 28-year-old Georgianne Williams. Madison, apparently one of the policemen or something like that, questioned the man who looked like Jesus and discovered that he was dressed up as Jesus and was on his way to a toga party. When the tarp covering the bed of his pickup truck came loose and released 12 blow-up sex dolls filled with helium, which floated up into the air. So apparently this woman saw somebody looking like Jesus who was going to a toga party, release a whole bunch of sex dolls, which then floated up in the air, and he's screaming at them, "Come back, come back!" She thought it's a rapture. She jumped out of her car. like I say, this is complete fabrication. This did not happen.
But it's so juicy. We love it. We just and you read this stuff and you just think that this could happen.
Yeah,
this could happen.
With some of the news stories that we have had on this show, this isn't all that far-fetched.
That's right. That's right. So that's why I think that's been so successful, and they've had to debunk it.
Yeah.
If it were more off the wall, they'd blow it off. Anyway, so you may have seen around town or whatever, seen bumper stickers that say, "In case of rapture, this car will be unmanned."
Yeah. Thankfully, you don't see those on planes, though.
Yeah, yeah. Or bumper stickers that say, "Today could be the day," meaning referring to the rapture might happen. Yeah. And, you know, this kind of gets into a little bit of a dark side of this, and that, you know, if you really believe that your car is going to go careening down the road when you disappearing and potentially kill somebody, it basically shows that you don't give a shit about that person, right? You're not taking responsibility.
Well, those are people who apparently are evil and sinful and did not earn their spot in heaven. And so,
Right. They're trash. Screw them.
Yeah.
They're not. So we have this rapture thing, and it's kind of funny in some ways. We have our own little retort to that down here on our little. We have a little bumper sticker that says "Rapture is a world without religious nuts," which is kind of a little pun that basically says, you know, good riddance. If you believe this stuff, we're not interested in having that. Unfortunately, with the rapture, we don't have religion disappearing with the people who are the big believers. We have this other phase of the rapture, which is called tribulation, and there's an ongoing debate about whether one occurs before or in between or after or whatever. Rapture is kind of an event. Tribulation is kind of a long period where a number of events that beckon or that have to happen before Jesus is to return. It's kind of a script in a way. And the tribulation has the state of Israel being established and them capturing a lot of the old biblical lands, which includes parts of Syria, quite a bit of the Middle East, it turns out. We have a rebuilding of the third temple at the Dome of the Rock and all Aqsa mosques.
Okay.
So we're going to have to tear down these mosques that, you know, of course, the Muslims consider Jerusalem one of the Holy Lands as well, so they'll get kicked out, and the temple rebuilt.
From everything I had seen, the rapture was always supposed to happen before the tribulation, because I was essentially...
That's basically what happens in this, and this is called, I think, it's either premillennialism or postmillennialism. I can't remember which.
Okay.
But there's a little bit of a debate about that. And
okay, because I was under the impression that the tribulation was going to be a bad time on Earth. Lots of wars, lots of bad things happening.
Right.
So the rapture was essentially saving these people from that.
That's right. That's right. And so the next step in the tribulation is that the legions of Antichrist. Antichrist is supposed to rise, and he will have these vast armies, and they'll be deployed against Israel, and there'll be this huge world war, during which Jews will either convert to Christianity or be killed and burn in hell, and then Jesus comes back, and all is wonderful again. And everybody who believed in him goes to heaven, including the people, I believe, that had been killed all along. They'll be reassembled, rematerialized, and anyway, so... And as I said, there's some dispute about the order, but we sort of have this script, and we have a lot of people very fascinated about how world events kind of map onto this script, right? And we, you know, the fact that we have the nation of Israel, nation of Israel with the people reassembling there was basically a big event in this scenario, right? And we have them grabbing more and more land, and that's part of the scenario as well. And it's sort of, and it's part of this. Let's see, Iraq is Babylon, is associated with Iraq has Babylon, which is considered where the Antichrist is supposed to come from. And so, in the current versions of this, there's been lots of different variations of this. In the current one, we have Saddam Hussein being the Antichrist. Of course, he's in jail somewhere, and not very powerful, so maybe it's not him, maybe it's somebody else. Could be.
Well, he has yet to come to real power and break out and take over the world.
And I guess the Antichrist is supposed to be reborn or whatever as well, just like Jesus was. Israel is seen as kind of a portal or a key to this whole scenario. Jesus is supposed to return there. The people are supposed to rapture wherever. Apparently, a lot of Israelites Israelis are supposed to be killed during this. In fact, so many so there's supposed to be a big sea of blood created. Yeah. And so the music has to do with my visualizing this is Americans surfing into Israel on this sea of blood, which is not a very pleasant sort of image. Yeah,
you're not picking the music.
And if this doesn't creep you out, something is really wrong with you. Go get therapy, okay?
Don, you're not picking the music anymore for this
show. So this begs the question, you know. Do we want this to happen, or do we want to prevent this from happening? Right? Are we trying to make this script go on? Are we feeding the fires of this so that we make Jesus come back? I mean, what could be better than going to heaven? I mean, heaven is eternal bliss.
Yes.
Bringing Jesus back, that's like eternal orgasm or something. I don't know what it is. It's just so damn wonderful that it's worth destroying the world for. Yeah. Apparently.
Well, from my understanding, again, if you believe this nonsense, this is going to happen. This was prophesied in the Bible. This will happen.
Right.
Now, we may be able to affect the time frame, but even that would be highly unlikely. You know, God's got a plan. That plan is going to happen. Mm-hmm. So we can't affect it. So this is going to happen, according to these strange people.
Right.
Who believe this nonsense.
Yeah, some people think that Jesus is going to descend from the clouds at the end, and that kind of gets into the surfing theme too. You know, we have these guys surfing with their surfboards up as they're doing the parasailing and all that, or jumping down I don't know. So you know, we can sit and laugh at it, and you can kind of say why it's stupid. I mean, I really think that this is the epitome of what's bad about religion. We have the application. We have people digging through the Bible and creating nonsense. We have this live and let die sort of attitude. Screw you if you're not a believer. Holy war is a part of God's plan, and it really plays on people's fears and sense of powerlessness. People in times of war, in times of chaos, people feel very unsettled, and this sort of plays into those fears and encourages them to believe in the Bible, believe in these prophecies and all this bunk, and they sort of give up, if you will, on reality, give up on trying to make things better, and I think that this is just really awful. And
it's a defeatist attitude.
Yeah. So we've sort of said why it's not a good thing, right? Okay. And it's easy to say, well, these are just a bunch of wackos off in the corner believing this stuff. That's really not the case. This is a big business. We've mentioned the fact that.
Okay, so it's a big bunch of wackos off.
Yeah, it's a big bunch of wackos. So let's talk about numbers. Let's see. We have in one poll we have 46% of people in the United States claiming to be evangelical, and 71 of those claiming to believe in this notion of Armageddon and it playing out more or less in the Bible. And so if you multiply those two numbers, you end up with 32% of the people that buy into this in the United States, which is a huge number, right? I have one
third of the people in the country.
Yes.
Wow.
Another estimate says that 59% believe in Revelation playing out eventually, and 17% think that it will happen in their lifetime. So we have 17% of the people in the United States giving up on the world, which is pretty sad.
Wow.
So another statistic is that claims that 15% of the voters in this next election will likely decide based on the Mideast policy in Israel, because that's such an important thing in this. Alone, that would be their sole issue, basically because they believe that once they turn on this rapture faucet or whatever, that's it. That's the most important thing in their life, to be saved.
Wow.
Right. So that's pretty creepy stuff, right? Certainly, our public officials, Bush, Ashcroft, DeLay, Rumsfeld, Cheney, all these guys buy into this to one degree or another. LaHaye himself is very, very influential. He helped start the moral majority. He and his wife more or less killed the Equal Rights Amendment. They were very big in getting that killed back in the 70s. Okay. They helped start this group called the Council for National Policy, which is this big secret organization of billionaires that whose membership is not quite known, but they influence a lot. A lot of money flows through them to other groups. We have Bush clearly influenced by Christian Zionists. We have him doing an about-face on foreign policy, where he was trying at one point to go for peace in exchange for land, and when the Christian Zionists spoke up, that whole thing was reversed. It's unacceptable to give land away. Tom DeLay, which is one of the most powerful congressmen, has a plaque in his office that says, "This could be the day." And I say that speaks volumes. You know, he buys into this, right? So what effect does it have? Well, if the world's going to end in 30 years, screw the environment. Why waste any time at all on the environment? Yeah. Right. So this notion of stewardship of the world that a lot of Christians claim to believe in is all pitched by this whole idea. Who cares? This notion of working together across nations in the United Nations is basically killed by this idea, so that because there's this notion that as part of the tribulation there'll be Antichrist rising and there'll be one world government, right? And people associated that with the UN, and so and that might explain. It might have something to explain with why we have sort of pulled out of the UN, snubbed our noses at them. Then what I'm going to do is I'll go into one more little thrust here and talk about the Middle East and Israel, which is the third main thing of the effect of this, and then we'll take some callers. So if people want to call in and get in the queue, that'd be great, because we need to screen our callers. And so in the Middle East, as we've said, this whole Israel prophecy that was false, of course. People think it's coming true with the nation of Israel. We see this very odd thing going on. We have Israel that a lot of the conservative Jews believe that yes, they are the chosen people, and yes, this is their land, and they're not very popular in that region because they've displaced a lot of Arabs from what would otherwise be their holy land. So they're not very popular, and they kind of feel like the world's kind of against them. So they're happy to take help from anywhere they can, and they get a lot of help from the United States in the form of this Christian Zionism. Okay. And the Christian Zionists are sort of helping them in a lot of ways, in very practical ways, sending a lot of money. The U.S. foreign policy is very much influenced by this. But it's a rather creepy thing, because the Christians think that, oh, well, this is the key to our salvation, and you're just a stepping stone. We're gonna step all over you when the time comes. A few of you will be saved. But the rest of you, if you don't convert, screw you. And so we have this sort of odd mix of those two, and then we have the Muslims in the Middle East being displaced from their holy land. And by the way, I think the Quran has a similar end of the world myth as well, but it doesn't involve Christians. They're not part of that picture. They're not. Anyway, so that's pretty goofy. So I think that with this lens, you can start to see a little bit of U.S. foreign policy, and especially what's going on in the Middle East, and it starts to make a lot more sense given this perspective. And I'd say that I have to say this: public policy based on fantasy, war, destruction is bad. Okay. That's the atheist perspective here.
We're going to go out on a limb here. We're going to go out on a limb here.
Fantasy, destruction of the earth. These are bad things. Okay. We should, as a nation, we should be very much aware that our foreign policy is being influenced by these things, and you actually have to look for it in the news right now. It's not front page news, and it should be, because you know.
Yeah. If they can make proof positive studies of things that are real and base policy on that, then I'm all for it. This is purely fantasy. It's purely brainwashing and just wishful thinking and such.
Right, mass delusion, no concern for the effects, no sense of responsibility.
Exactly.
I mean, if you want to, kill yourself to go to Jesus, knock yourself out, but leave the rest of the world out of it.
Exactly. Exactly.
So I think we can go to callers now.
Okay then. All right. Again, we are live today on Sunday, June 27th, and we are a live call-in show, so we have the phone number up on the screen. Go ahead and give us a call if you've got any questions or comments. And we are going to go on to Rowan. How you doing?
Hi. Sorry.
Okay.
My first time calling.
Okay, welcome.
I remember last week, I tried to call in because you said that you don't celebrate Christmas because you're not a Christian.
Yeah.
I'm not a Christian either, but I still celebrate Christmas.
Okay.
But it was actually the Christians that stole Christmas from a different religion.
Yeah.
Which was actually called winter solstice, or
they pretty much every religion has some kind of festivity or something in that time of the world, in that time of the year. I mean, yeah, they do have the winter solstice there on like the 20th or the 21st. Mithraism was an ancient religion before Christianity, and their god was born on December 25th. And there are dozens of other religions that all have, again, something going on around that time of year. It's winter, they want to party.
Right. So Christmas is a very rich tradition. We have, we have the Christmas tree, we have the celebration of Christ's birth, we have Santa Claus and all that, and all of these sort of come together, and they're all kind of mixed up, and it's kind of hard to tease them apart. I think Ashley touched on some of the rebirth myths. The winter solstice is very much part of that because it's the shortest day of the year. I'm sure a lot of people in early times were sort of afraid that the days would continue getting shorter and shorter, and the crops would not return, and it was kind of a scary time. And at the time of winter solstice, the days start getting longer again, and this is the sort of foundation, if you will, because it is based on observations that people saw in the world.
Yeah,
and from that, there were a lot of traditions around it, and I think a lot of the sort of birth stories have to do with the fact that it's kind of a time of rebirth of the world, a rebirth of the seasons and such.
Yeah. People at that time were farming societies. They need to know how the year works.
Absolutely.
And so they had observations. They knew that the year starts getting longer at that time. And so yeah, I mean, they're running with that idea.
Yeah, the Christmas trees and lights have to do with from pagan times. The cutting down of the Christmas tree is symbolic of the end of paganism. And actually killing a tree is inherent to the Christian tradition, which is kind of interesting.
But as the ACA, we do actually have solstice parties typically.
Yeah, so. But our religion, we have a story. It's kind of like Santa Claus.
Okay.
Except
what is your religion, by the way?
It's a different goddess. She has a garden, and she has these beautiful roses that bloom only in the winter. Okay. And the story goes on to a man picking one of her roses, and to punish him, she turns him into a giant goat.
Okay.
He rides on.
What religion is this, by the way?
Wiccan.
Wiccan. Okay. Okay.
And she rides on a large goat, and he carries the presents, and he carries her. Okay. And if she comes across a family that's starving, it's very hungry because the winter. I mean, it's winter and the crops are dying.
Right.
Yeah.
She kills Nasserskagi and saves one bone, throws the bone into her bag, and pulls out Nasserskagi, live and well.
Okay.
And she'll go around and do that every year. Just kind of like Christmas, except...
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So you can make a big study of all the different religions and what they say about that time of year, which is an important time of the year for various reasons.
Yeah.
So
actually,
that's a pretty interesting story.
I really should look this up. I'll have to look it up for Christmas this year or something. There is one line in the Bible somewhere, and I never remember to look for it at the right time, and I've had hard times before, where it specifically goes out of its way to say, along the lines of, do not do as the pagans do and decorate your trees with tinsel and gold and such. It is like a clear definition saying, if you celebrate Christmas and you decorate a tree, you're going to hell. Apparently a lot of people don't see that verse.
And now some people would claim that our current religion is capitalism, and that we go out and celebrate Christmas by buying stuff.
It's so commercialized that the whole religion part of it is just shoved aside in favor of Santa Claus and Christmas Carol and stuff like that.
Anything else, Rowan?
That was really it.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
Thank you very much for your call.
Yeah, thanks for calling.
Bye.
All right. Let's go on to Todd. How you doing?
Pretty good. How's it going, man?
Not too bad. What you got for us?
Yeah, one thing I wanted to say, y'all were talking about the story or the myth or whatever of the lady that jumped out of the car when she saw the things floating by. Last night on HBO on 6 Feet Under, they had an episode that started off exactly like that.
I've heard about that. I haven't actually seen it, but on our email list, somebody posted that. Yeah, that was on there.
Yeah,
so
that was pretty funny.
That would have been interesting. But yeah.
Yeah, well, one thing I was, y'all are talking a whole lot about the Zionist movement, and Israel has to completely regain all the holy sites so that Christ can come again and all that. I'd gone on a lot of websites and looked at. They were kind of conspiracy theory type websites investigating the Illuminati and stuff like that. But a lot of the stuff that they discussed was basically that exact thing. These various groups like Pat Buchanan, I think, is a member of one, which is like kind of the guard of the Vatican. And he's a big Zionist, I believe. And they were kind of talking about the two. There's like a split in the elitist groups at the. There's a Zionist, and then there's another group. I can't remember what their angle was exactly, but, that I've been trying to tell that to people for, the last 2 or 3 years. I'm like, don't you see that that's, very disturbing that we have these people in the highest parts of our government that, they want, Israel to succeed simply so Christ can come again and we can all die.
Exactly.
Right. And then on top of that, up until real recently, and not a lot of people knew that Israel had nuclear weapons. Even though I thought it was common knowledge, I'd still see articles every now and then that said, well, they might have them, or they supposedly have them. And then they released the guy from prison who had been in prison for like 12 years or something, who was the one that broke the story in the first place.
Right.
And I'm like, that's my biggest fear, is that, well, that's the finger of God right there. That's their new Ark of the Covenant, we got the nuclear weapons, so, we're ready to start this holy war, so.
Well, you can say a lot of things about Israel, but they're a tenacious bunch.
Oh, yeah.
You have to say that about them, yeah.
And I just watched a thing today on the History Channel about the founding of Israel, it always kind of strikes me as funny that no one seems to really complain about the fact that, all these Palestinians were just basically there to just up and leave their homes and businesses and whatever and could never come back.
Right, they'd been there for centuries and
it's like 750,000 people, I think, were just, moved. Okay, there we go.
Time to go.
Yeah. And what about those folks? Yeah. And apparently a few of them are Christians, right? Christian Palestinians, and they get it from all sides, right?
Yeah.
The U.S. Christians don't give a hoot about them. The Israelis think they're in their way, and the Muslims think they're traitors.
Yeah.
So you got to pity those guys.
Yeah. All right. Did you have anything else for us?
Well, one kind of general thing, just about people trying to prove the historical, existence of Jesus or whatever. I saw something else. I've been watching a lot of TV lately. I got my cable back, so I saw another cool thing on. It was on the legend of King Arthur, and then that only goes back about 1,000 years.
Yeah.
And the quote that they said, which made me go, well, there you go. That's the quote to use for Jesus. Was, well, the farther and farther back we go, the smaller and smaller he gets until when we get back to when he supposedly existed, he was if he did exist, he was, maybe a lord or something, or, he didn't have this huge, kingdom with, knights and a round table and all this crap. And, and that only goes back 1,000 years. It's like, well, think of a myth that's 2,000 years old.
Right.
And, it's going to be very difficult. It's just ridiculous for to me that
people love a good yarn, and they love to embellish it, and over time that becomes part of the main thing. Yeah, absolutely.
And I've always kind of assumed that Christianity, a big part, is just orally telling these stories generation after generation after generation. Before they ever get written down, and then after they're written down, the same thing happens. So that just things get blown out of proportion, and what was once kind of a non-event, all of a sudden is really, really important because it's been told 30,000 times. And
y'all were talking with Ashley a while ago about different religions and how they have similar kind of stories. And the one I always bring up to a lot of people is Helios, the sun god, who, if you look at images of him, he looks pretty much like Jesus. He's got the big, fiery halo, the beard and the mustache and the blonde hair. And he was born on December 25th. And I think he may have had a virgin birth and some of those other characteristics, but I'm not for sure.
Yeah, the virgin birth story is actually a very common thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Turns out.
So.
Okay, well, that was about all I had. Y'all are doing a great job, man. Keep it up.
Okay, thanks a lot for calling.
All right, bye.
Right.
Thank you, Todd.
All right, let's go on to...
Yeah, we did a show a while back about the virgin birth and on that. And just how flimsy the virgin birth of Jesus story really is, and how it was based on a twist of words, a mistranslation that was at one point, and pulled in from earlier religions and all that. So
it's a very common thread amongst all religions of the virgin birth and being persecuted and killed for your beliefs and stuff like that. It's
Well, birth itself is pretty magical, right?
So.
Even the dead, I think it's pretty magical.
So. All right, let's go on to, I believe, okay, a lot of our stuff just went kerflooey. I'm going to talk really, really quickly. Next week, Karen Glasser's going to be on. I'm going to go over a little bit next week, I believe, on Christian scientists. And I'm just going to read one thing really quickly out of this book. This is...
Yeah, we had a caller call in last show and bring up the topic.
Exactly. The old host of the show actually called in last week and said that he had been working over some tax forms and saw some kind of exemption or whatever that you can get if you're a Christian scientist. And he was wondering about details on that. Well, I didn't know anything at the time. I've since done some reading on it, figured out that, yes, you do get an exemption if you're a Christian scientist under very special circumstances. And so I'll be going over that next week. But just reading over some of the Christian Science beliefs and dogmas, they are a really scary bunch of people. Just to read really quickly from this is a book called Handbook of Denominations in the United States. It basically just tells what is the basics of the Lutheran belief versus the Protestant versus the Catholic versus whatever.
It's a good reference book.
It's an excellent reference book, yeah. But going back to the Christian Scientist, what they say is healing is not held to be miraculous, but divinely natural. Disease is understood. Now this is the key phrase here. Disease is understood to be basically a mental concept that can be dispelled by active Christian discipleship. What that translates to is that diseases are not real. They don't actually exist. It's all figments of your imagination. And if you pray more, then you can be healed. So apparently these people don't know anything about viruses and bacteria and toxins. Because they as far as we know,
just
exist.
Right.
Yeah, they are a very scary bunch.
Yeah, and you got to pity the, I mean, it's one thing for an adult to say that and make decisions about his health based on that, but what about their poor children?
Exactly. There have been tons of lawsuits against these people and how they basically deal with their children because they don't a lot of times seek any kind of medical attention, and the kids have died from very, very, very simple things. Which, a single shot of penicillin or something could have saved their lives. But they just don't do that. So, anyway, on to more callers. We have got Laura. How you doing?
All right, how are you guys?
Yeah, pretty well. What you got for us?
I've heard you every now and then talk about this, but I just wanted to mention it again. I am a Christian, and I'm not calling to change anybody's minds, because the fact of the matter is, I know that's not the case, but I would like to stress that among many Christians, there's not a screw you attitude toward other believers or non-believers. If you look at Jesus' life, his teachings are about how we live now, most of them, as opposed to the afterlife. Yeah. And there are a lot of good people in this world trying their best to live God's love and to be a neighbor to one another. And
work with us and try to rein these people in.
Yeah, I do understand this. The main
do you buy into this destroy the world attitude? I certainly don't. So let's work together and stop this madness. What do you think?
Well,
how do you propose to do that?
Well, I mean, we can do that in part in the election. We can speak out against these people. That's what I'm doing today. Is speaking out against this craziness, right? I'm hoping that you and the sort of more mainline Christians can do that too. I don't hear your voice very much. Yeah.
I think a lot of it has to do with we're in a society where we're supposed to be respectful of all people, of all religions, and if we're trying to do that, then we can't do that to the religious right either.
Yeah. Going a little bit onto a different topic here, though, I have heard, and I do understand that 95% of Christians are not saying that everybody deserves to burn in hell and all that kind of stuff. I mean, those are the vocal minority out there who are saying that.
Yeah, certainly the Catholic Church would.
However,
go ahead.
The main, I guess, crux of the matter, though, is Christians are all members of a religion where God says anyone who doesn't follow Jesus deserves to burn in hell. I don't see how Christians can walk away and say, well, that's not really true. Or someone, an atheist, for example, just because it's easy, doesn't deserve that. Because, again, that's essentially what the Bible's saying. That's what God is saying, is that all these people deserve eternal torment and eternal hell. I just have a problem with people supporting a religion if they don't agree with that pretty important footnote.
And then you'll find other places in the Bible. You could find something in there for any position you have, and I admit that. But there are other places that ultimately, I believe that not one of us, all of us are condemned to hell, I think.
Do you think you deserve that? Do you think you deserve that?
I know that...
just given what you've done in your life, do you think that you deserve eternal torment?
And then you get into sticky matters about whether there is a real hell. And so I've done a lot of scholarly, I've done master's degree in religion. And so, I mean, these are things you could debate till the cows come home. It all comes to the nature of God. I believe that we're all sinful and can't do things on our own, period.
Okay, but again, the question still remains, do you believe that?
Do I believe?
In terms
you yourself,
of,
personally,
I admit I'm not perfect. I've messed up in my life. I've done some things wrong. Assuming that there is some kind of God and I will be judged at the end of my life, I can imagine him saying, look what you did on that date, that kind of really sucked. That's bad choice.
Yeah, he'd say that to me too.
Bad. However, going to hell and eternal torment and punishment and stuff, I'm not that bad. I've got my faults. I'll admit
pretty
that.
Hard to deserve that.
But yeah, I'm not that bad. And I don't think anybody, I firmly believe that nobody is so bad that they deserve eternal torment. We have a finite life. There is a finite amount of damage that we can do in our lifetime. Even if you have ultimate power over the world, there's only so much you can actually do to hurt people. Getting an eternal torment, an eternal punishment for that, I don't think that's right, even if you are really bad. Now, what the Bible is saying is for the equivalent of a parking ticket, you deserve the death penalty. I don't agree with that.
Right. And what does it say about a God that set up this system to begin with?
Exactly. You know? I don't see too many Christians offering a really good explanation, I guess, of how that is a comfortable position to be in.
I'll tell you what. Give me some time. Let me do some thinking about it, and I'm going to call you back.
Please do.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah. I'd love to hear it because we get that every now and then, and I haven't heard good answers for it. So.
Let me. Off the top of my head, I say, that's because God's God and I'm not. But let me do some thinking, let me do some research, and I'll get back to you.
Okay,
Please do.
And really quickly, that's really just an appeal to power. He's the biggest, baddest person out there, therefore he gets to make the rules. Saddam Hussein was the biggest, baddest person in his country. Just because of that doesn't make him right.
Well, it goes back to my belief system. I believe that God created me, which you don't believe that God created you. So there's obviously that power, that God is the biggest, baddest person because God created everything, but you don't have that background to draw on.
Yeah, but even if he did, I don't believe that if I have kids, since I created them, I have power over them. And if I want to, I kill them, I can, I brought you into this world, I can take you back out again. I don't agree with that. These are other sentient beings, even a pet. I don't think that I can, I bought my cat, I can do with him pretty much whatever I want. I don't agree with that. And so God saying that he's going to create all these, sentient little beings out there that he can, I created them, I can take them back again. I don't agree with that either. So.
And it also, you can also look in the Bible of, there's some people say the Old Testament's the vengeful God, the New Testament's the loving God, which that is not true at all.
No.
And also, when you're with your view there, you're kind of splitting God and making God, the good God or the bad God, and when it's not that simple.
Okay, all right.
But let me do some thinking, let me do some research, and I'll call you back. And I thank you for listening. And and I just want to stress again that there are a lot of good Christians that don't have a screw you attitude toward the peoples of this world.
Yeah. I usually try and be careful when we get onto the wackos to say these are the wackos who are the vocal ones out there. 90% of Christians are very reasonable, normal people. So yeah, I understand that completely. Occasionally we may go off on a tangent and start railing off on these people, but we know they're not the majority.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
It was good talking to you.
Okay, thanks a lot for calling.
Bye-bye.
Let me add something to that. We are for religious tolerance as well, but you have to draw the line somewhere. If somebody is really doing something destructive or harming other people, absolutely, it's time to speak out and stop that.
Exactly.
And that's the situation that we have here.
Yeah, I certainly respect other people's rights to freedom of speech and the right that they have the right to believe whatever it is that they might want to believe, whatever religion that they have. I also have the right to question those beliefs and say, look, your ideas are nutty. For these reasons. Now, you as an individual, I'm not attacking you. I'm saying that you have some ideas which don't make a whole lot of sense. And so that's basically just an open dialogue. I don't agree. The caller was right. In this country, we do have this idea that beliefs are cherished things not to be questioned. I don't agree with that in any way, shape, or form. People act and make decisions and do all kinds of things.
Leads to action
on their beliefs.
Influences the world.
Exactly. If their beliefs are incorrect, you have got to tell them that before they can actually do something on that. Andrea Yates believed that her kids were going to go to hell if she let them live, and so she killed them. That is something that we should be able to say, look, your ideas are wacky. So
that's right, and I think atheists can actually give that perspective. We can come in and from a complete skeptical point of view say this is bunk, whereas I think Christians tend to soft pedal it a lot, and so we have these things kind of spinning out of control sometimes because there aren't enough voices to reel it in.
And we typically don't expect anyone to convert while watching this show. Or listen to us for a couple days or something like that, and all of a sudden think that, wow, those atheists are all right. and convert religion. That's not the point of the show. But having the freedom to have this show and have other opinions get out there, I think, is a very good thing, because it at least makes people critically look at their beliefs. It's when you don't have any other opinions being expressed that one belief can just take off and go on a tear and receive absolutely no resistance. And that's a really scary thing. Christian fundamentalism, you know, Muslim fundamentalism, any kind of fundamentalism can be a very scary thing. And so this show, if nothing else, is just making people think. Not necessarily change their lives.
We're trying to anyway.
Yeah, we hope.
That's our goal. That's our goal. Another thing, I think one of our folks behind the scenes had a comment that that God is sort of bad in both the New Testament and the Old Testament. In the Old Testament, he was you know, throwing thunderbolts and storms and Sodom and Gomorrah and all that good stuff, and kind of a bad guy killing people all the time. In the New Testament, we've got this heaven and hell thing, and if you're not really good, if you don't do just the right thing, you're going to go to hell.
Yeah.
So,
God got sick of micromanaging the world, so now he delegated all his responsibilities off to Satan. So he doesn't micromanage and tell people what to do and talk to people and throw thunderbolts and break down cities. Now he just says, you're all going to hell. So, screw all of you, I'm watching TV. So,
something like that.
All right, we have got, let's see, Jim, how you doing?
Hi, my name's Jim.
Okay, what you got for us?
So, where do you, if y'all don't believe in God, where do you think you're going after you die?
You're going to disappear and not exist.
Yeah, just like any other creature or animal when it dies. Life is a chemical process. I have chemical things going on in my brain, my heart's beating, all these things are happening. When that stops, I stop. As in my consciousness, my brain, my everything just stops.
So where would your soul go?
We don't believe in souls.
Yeah, what soul?
So we value life as we're alive right now. We value it quite a bit because we don't believe there's an afterlife.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so you just think y'all disappear?
Well, our identity and our consciousness and all that stops. Our bodies decompose. All that good stuff.
Yeah, what makes me me, as in my beliefs and my ideas
your
and
personality.
my personality and stuff like that. That is not something that is separate from the flesh and bone me. It's a part of me. And so when my flesh and bone stops doing what it does today, then my personality stops doing what it does today, and what makes me me is just not there anymore. If you have a car and you start taking it apart, when do you take out the part that says this is a car?
Yeah,
it doesn't happen. It's all there.
Yeah, when does it stop
well, the
running?
engine's just the engine. You can replace it, and you still got a car.
Yeah.
So y'all don't believe in afterlife?
Nope.
No.
Y'all believe in ghosts?
Nope.
No.
No.
Now, all of this goes on a little bit. Atheism is simply lack of a belief in a God. Full stop, period. That's it.
But God doesn't have anything to do with the afterlife.
Exactly.
So y'all don't think y'all go to hell?
We tend to be skeptics by and large. We tend not to believe in things that we don't have evidence for, strong evidence or proof.
Exactly. We're skeptics of other things. Atheism is simply lack of a belief in a God. But beyond that, we don't believe that there are spirits or ghosts or paranormal, psychics, fortune-telling, Bigfoot, all that stuff. It all goes in the same category for us.
Okay. And do y'all believe in gays? Like, do y'all strongly...
Well, they do exist, yeah.
Yeah, but do y'all, like, are y'all okay with them?
I certainly don't have a problem. If that's a choice that they want to make in their life, go for it.
Oh, because I'm a Christian, and I believe that it's right for gays, because people should believe whatever they want to.
Okay.
And I don't see nothing wrong with it.
Okay.
So y'all don't believe anything about, like, gays or anything like that?
Well, I mean, we don't condemn them in any way.
We're pretty much neutral to homosexuality. It's part of it's a natural human aspect of sexuality, and don't make any statements one way or the other about it. We're not out actively condemning it like a lot of Christians are, for example.
Yeah. I see no reason that they should not be allowed to do whatever they want to do, because I don't see any actual harm coming from it. Now, if it caused some kind of harm in the world or relationships or whatever, then I might have a problem. But I don't see anything that's actually causing problems, so okay.
And so I really strongly believe in atheism, and I just want to switch over to atheism right now.
Okay, well, get down and pray with us.
I will pray with y'all.
Okay, did you have any other questions for us?
Yes.
Okay. One or two more. We got other callers waiting for us.
Oh, y'all do?
Yep, we got other callers.
Okay, I got two more questions.
Okay.
Really quick. One is, okay, if y'all wouldn't be able, if y'all disappeared, why is there like a Jesus?
I don't quite follow that.
Yeah. As in, do we believe that Jesus existed? Is that the question?
What's his name? Jesus? Yes, Jesus.
Okay, what about him? Okay. Compose yourself.
Yeah. Those are some good questions until the last one. So,
yeah, the last one got a little bit flaky there, but
give us a call back when you have some other good questions.
Compose yourself, calm down a little bit, ask questions.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're going to go on to, let's see, Robbie, how you doing?
Hey, buddies, how you doing?
Hey, what's up?
I'm a Christian myself, and I heard the Lord in the Bible, and I just want to let you know that I went to church, and I'm not afraid of nobody. I'm a brave guy.
Okay.
And the souls, inside you is a love soul.
Okay, but again, we haven't seen any proof or evidence that a soul actually exists.
Yeah.
So
I just want to let you know.
Okay, but
provide us some evidence.
Yeah, provide us with
if
something.
If you've got this evidence,
provide us a reason to believe in it.
Yeah.
Rather than, I could just go up to you and say, you know something? There are pink unicorns.
Yeah.
And I got them in my backyard.
I know about that. I just want to let you know is...
Okay, well, I don't.
I didn't know it was such a popular thing that you had pink unicorns.
Okay, I was praying. I was praying for the people, like in a whole country. I just praying for them.
Okay.
And I just want to let you know that I will listen to the Lord and praise the Lord of my Jesus as Savior.
Okay.
Well, listen, guys.
You do that.
Let's go and peace out.
Okay, thanks for calling. And while you are praying and asking for the world to be saved, we atheists are going to be out there trying to actually do something to actually save the world. Try and actually make it a better place to live for people here and now. Because we don't believe that God or any other saviors out there is going to be saving our butt. We have to do it ourselves. It's under our own steam power that we're going to make this world a better place. Anyway, let's go on to Shelley. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Pretty good. What you got for us?
So I don't get confused here.
Okay.
I wanted to respond to the lady that had called in earlier, Laura, I think was her name.
Yep.
She had the master's degree and all that.
Yeah.
Which is weird, considering that I think if I had a master's degree in theology, I'd be able to quote you some Bible verses, but that was just me. What I wanted to do is I wanted to make a couple comments on the fact of when you said that Jesus says that we deserve to burn in hell if we don't do good. Well, actually, that's not correct.
Okay.
What's correct is I have sinned just as much as you have. There's no difference between you and I, and I'm a Christian. Basically, Jesus was sent to die for our sins, and if we choose with our free will, if we choose to believe, Jesus is the Son of God and the Savior, then at that point, that Don's going back and forth.
Yeah, sorry.
A
little kink in my neck. I'm not reacting to you.
No, that's okay. I just thought that was funny, so I'm like, oh, God, shut up. But that if we choose to bring him into our life that way, that is what will get us to heaven. That doesn't erase I will still be held accountable for every sin I've ever done. The difference between you and me is that if I truly believe it and I live it in my heart per the Scriptures, then my reward is I get to spend eternity with Christ and God.
Okay, but the question still remains: for the sins that you've done, do you think you deserve hell?
It doesn't work that way, though. See, that's why the question's not easy. I can't say, I mean, yes, of course I deserve hell. Because, I mean,
you honestly think that you are so terrible that you deserve eternal torment?
Per God's word, yes, I do. If Jesus had not been sent down.
Okay, I'm gonna have to go back to what you said a little bit earlier and say you and I have sinned the same amount. I disagree with that. Either that or I think my punishment. I don't think I'm that bad.
Not the same amount, but we both committed sin. We're both guilty of it.
Okay, but again, I mean, just going back, comparing this to, let's say, U.S. law, just because it's easy. I don't consider good and evil, good and bad, yes, no, sin and good, to be a black or white issue. I'm not perfect. So assuming that there was some kind of final judgment, I would say, yeah, I don't get, 100% full reward because, yeah, I messed up a couple times. But I don't think I deserve, eternal punishment. Not that bad. So I don't think if you get a parking ticket, you should get the death penalty.
Well,
which essentially is what the Bible says.
No, it's not. It's not at all. Basically, it says that, He gave us life. He sent His Son down, John 3:16, God so loved the world, blah, blah. Sent Him down, and that if whosoever believeth in Him should not perish. And so if you believe, you're given the choice. You're given the choice. You're not deserving anything.
But again, that's not really a choice.
That's right. If I hold a gun to your head and say, you have a choice, you give me your money or die, that's...
I walk into a bar.
What choice is that?
That's not how much money I have.
I walk into a bar with a shotgun. And I go up to the manager and say, got a nice place here. Be a shame if something happened to it. But I tell you what, you give me $50 a week and you'll be okay. Nothing's going to happen to it. Is that fair?
No.
Is that just?
No.
So essentially God's coming down and saying, heck of a life you got there. Be a shame if you had to burn in hell for all eternity, isn't it? No. But I tell you what, I got my son here. You believe in him, you'll be all right.
Right.
So that if it wasn't fair for me with the bartender, why is it fair with God and Jesus?
Because you're human and He is holy and perfect.
That doesn't answer the question, though. Just because He's bigger and more powerful doesn't mean that He gets to make you
buy this whole thing.
On a more historical tip, have you guys ever read The Case for Christ by Lee Strobel?
Yeah.
You have? And what did you think of that?
Logical loopholes out the wazoo.
Really?
Yeah. I actually, the first chapter, I want to say, is around 23 pages. As I was going through it, I was just seeing these things that this doesn't make any sense, or this leads to this logical assumption, or whatever. And I wrote a rebuttal to it that was about as long as the actual chapter itself. He skips over a lot of things there. It's a good coffee table type. It gives some decent answers to things, but it really leaves a lot of stuff unanswered.
Well, because a lot of things are unanswered, but because there's a lot that we don't know. I mean, even as.
But that's not a reason to place full trust into.
But that's why you have faith.
But faith, I don't agree, is a good thing.
My dad left for work every day when I was little. I had faith he'd come home, and he did. I mean, it's just that's the reason that He's given us the free will, because you can't force someone to love you.
And faith in something like that is a valid thing. When I see a chair, I have a certain amount of faith or trust that when I sit down, it's not going to collapse.
Right.
Because I have, historical evidence, I guess you could say, that every time I sat down, it's worked, except a couple. But in stretching that out to say that there's some all-loving, all-knowing, all-powerful person living in the sky who created the world and loves me and really cares about my sex life, I don't think that deserves the same amount of faith, because I don't have any evidence of it. I've never been shown.
Well, you had evidence that your dad was going to come back, because he did it a few times, right?
Exactly.
Well, and like I said, to counteract that point, the fact that where in my personal life where I've had proof of there being, Christ living in me is, been personal things that have taken place in my life, because you know, whereas some previous people that call in and say they're Christians, they kind of conform to rationalizations of other things that make it okay to live in the world, whereas, you know, and then also contributing, saying that, well, religion and being a Christian is the same thing. Well, it's not, because there's many, many, many religions out there, and some of them are fruitier than a day is long. So, you know, it's insulting to me as a Christian to say, oh, you're religious. No, I'm not religious. I'm a Christian. There's a difference. And, you know, Christians, it's not our place to judge, because God will do that. And I have a best friend that's gay. I have a best friend that is gay. I love him to pieces. I don't agree with what he's doing based on what I believe, but that doesn't mean I'm going to shun him and not be his friend. So I hate it when people get the wrong impression about something that they may not have a lot of information on.
Okay, so assuming, again, that the Bible is true, and in, we'll say, 50 years from now, you're both at the gates. God says, okay, you've lived a pretty good life, you're a Christian, you get to come in. Your friend, sorry, not so kind to him, he's going to go to hell. Would you agree with that decision?
Yes.
Why?
Because
do you think that that friend is so bad?
Because I'm not getting into heaven based on my deeds. I'm not getting into heaven based on the fact that I'm a great person.
So just the fact that he didn't believe in Jesus means that he should burn for all eternity?
That was his choice, and there's a repercussion for it, and that is the repercussion. It's real similar. If I go out and blow somebody's head off, that was my decision to go and murder someone.
Yeah, and you deserve to be punished for that.
Correct, and I'm going to be sentenced to prison for that. That's my punishment. Now, if I had chosen to not kill him, then I'd be fine. It's kind of along the same principle.
Now, going back to, again, U.S. law, just to make the analogies here, because I know a couple of these. If I have a product and I just package it up in a box and send it to you, and then send you a bill a couple days later saying, you know, that book I sent you, it cost $10, so can you please send it to me? I have no legal recourse to do anything to you. You can keep that book, or whatever it is, and not pay for it, because I can't give you something and then demand that you pay me for it. So, in a separate vein, in addition to the idea that I don't think I'm so bad I deserve to go to hell, I also don't think that God has set up things, and I don't think it's fair that he set things up, that he has already created me, condemned me to hell, and given me a way out, but only if I accept it.
You don't believe anything in life is predetermined?
Well, not exactly that, but I don't think it's fair that he said, look, you're going to go to hell unless you do this. That's not really a fair choice. Again, if somebody walks up to you and says, give me your wallet or I'll shoot you, that's not really a fair choice. That's illegal in our country. And I think that should be illegal. You know, God shouldn't be doing that either. If he's a moral and just and good being, he wouldn't do that.
But if there were no consequences to anyone's actions, then anybody could do anything they wanted, and everybody would get to go to heaven, or everybody would go to hell.
Okay. If
souls don't take up any space at all, what's the problem? I mean, is it a zero-sum game? Do I compete for the same slot in hell that you do, and so you have to be better than me? Is that the game here?
Yeah, because you're still stuck on who's better. You're still judging yourself against me or against someone else, when the true thing is
because it's a valid comparison.
I have a problem back at square one here, where we're talking about sin. I think the whole concept of sin is bogus. I think it's a bastardization of the idea of personal responsibility. You do something, it affects other people, it hurts them or whatever, you are responsible for that, and you're responsible to them. And if you break a law, you are punished by the government or whatever, and you are responsible. It's not like you get a get out of jail free card because you believe in Jesus. And all that. I think that's just a scam. I think that's religion coming in and screwing up this whole idea of responsibility and inserting itself in there, that Jesus somehow has, because he died, he defeats the whole game, and you get to have no responsibility at all. I think that's bogus.
Let's make yet another analogy. Analogies are fun.
I feel bad because I'm keeping you on the phone for so long, and there's a bunch of people on hold going, yeah!
No, but this is good. This is the point of the show.
Okay. I'm glad I could help.
Of course. Okay, this is the question I had years and years ago, is that you have two people. One is somebody who goes along and lives their life trying to do good. They help out the poor, they donate money, they rescue wild animals and stuff like that. They don't believe in God, they don't believe in Jesus or anything like that, but they live a pretty good life. They die by trying to save a bus full of children that's burning on fire. Because they don't believe, they go to hell. Now, somebody else murders 35 people and goes to prison, and just before he gets the lethal injection goes, oh my God, I was wrong. I'm so sorry about all of this. I accept Jesus as my Savior, and da-da-da-da-da. He gets to go to heaven.
If he means it.
Of course, of course. I don't think that's fair.
And it isn't. I'll be totally honest with you. It's terrible.
Okay.
I think it's horrible. I cry when I think about the fact that my own father, maybe, who was a wonderful man, and Catholic, but I know has no personal relationship with Jesus Christ, that if something happened to him tomorrow, it's very quite possible that he's not going to end up there.
But you're supporting the God who set the rules up that way.
Yes.
See, that's where I draw the line. If I see
that's where you think I'm crazy.
if I see injustice, I want to speak out about it. I want to say, no, that's not right.
The injustice, from my point of view personally, the injustice to me is not the fact that people sin and that people do good or bad. You could be the best person in the whole world, you could be the worst person in the whole world. Doesn't matter to me.
Matters to me.
Well, you know what I mean. I'm talking about in this conversation that's taking place right now. The injustice to me is that they don't really sit down and read the Bible, and that they don't really sit there and think about it and go to someone who knows about it. Don't take another, including me, don't take another human's, account or interpretation of what the Bible could be unless it's someone who is very well versed in that as well as the historical aspects of it, because you're right, you do need to be convinced. It says in the Bible, seek him out, he'll answer. We don't choose him, he chooses us. That's the way it works. When you have a feeling or a notion and you feel this presence, and if you've never experienced, you won't know what I'm talking about. But if you do, then you know, and then you go forth and you better mean it, because it says in the Bible that they much rather have someone come forth and mean it than someone come forth.
So how do you know it's not the devil tricking you?
I know.
You know, okay.
Because the Bible tells you. In the Bible, if you read the Bible, it talks about the devil. It talks about what he's capable of.
What if the devil wrote the Bible?
The devil didn't write the Bible. Oh my goodness! I can't believe you said that out.
I'm just asking.
Hey, it is the Atheist
I feel like I need to
Experience.
put
Sorry.
my phone down because the lightning might come right now. No, he didn't.
I think it's a reasonable question. How do you know that there wasn't malicious intent from day one?
Because there's actual historical evidence when they go back to research in the New Testament, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. When they go back and they research that, there is historical evidence of eyewitness accounts and things written down within 3 to 5 years after historians, not theologians, no one with a religious, invested in this. Someone who just studies history can go back and say, this is when we think he died, and these accounts were written just
I'm asking a little different question. They say that the Bible's inspired by God, right? What if the Bible's inspired by the devil?
Wasn't.
But what evidence
If you read it, you'll know it.
But no, I mean, it's a book.
The devil's a tricky guy. I mean, how are you supposed to know this?
Well, I find it funny that you believe in the devil, but you
I don't believe in the devil. I'm playing devil's advocate.
Oh, okay, you're giving me a trick question.
No,
okay.
No, it's
about
honestly,
it's getting at this notion of faith, and you have this notion of faith, and if you don't back it up by evidence, how can you trust? How can you possibly trust it?
The evidence is that the devil's not going to write a book and tell you anything. The evidence that the devil is on earth right now.
Okay.
But
the basis remains. You're putting faith in a book, essentially, the Bible.
Scripture.
What evidence do you have that is correct outside of your own beliefs, which could be faulty?
Because historians have actually proven that when the apostles wrote in the New Testament, they actually can go back and trace amongst other people that have written accounts that aren't even in the Bible, just outside people back through history. There's actually, I don't even know if people know this, but there's actually something referred to as the quote-unquote the Q, where they say, oh, there's additional information that Jesus said, and all it is sayings. I mean, the Bible is a book just like any other book.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, of course, it's all relevant to the fact that these men, you know, but back then they said if you studied those type of people, that whole age, that they did not just write down these crazy, wild stories just to do it.
And I haven't actually seen any of those other books or evidence. I mean, I've heard about them, but I've never actually...
I just read books based on gentlemen saying that, well, I've researched this book, and, you know, of course, I haven't had a chance to go pick them up and read them either, but...
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, the one or two very, very fractured accounts that I have heard of Jesus outside of the Bible, the main one being Josephus, is basically that's been, you know, pretty much all theologians and historians have said, no, that's completely bunked. Because it's written in a different style, it's kind of just shoved in the middle of another passage, and just for various reasons, it's bunk. I haven't heard of any evidences outside of the Bible of any of the stories in there, save the fact that, you know, Israel exists. You know, I mean, basic things like that. But again, if you want to go into things like that, well Alice in Wonderland talks about England.
Yeah, the people who wrote the Bible believed what they saw. But getting back to my point, how do we know that they weren't tricked? You know, just because the story's, you know, 2,000 years old doesn't necessarily, and the person writing the story believes it's true, doesn't necessarily mean that it's fact, right?
Well, if someone, okay,
we have the Iliad. That's fiction. That was at least as old as the Bible.
If you and I were standing on a corner and we both saw someone shot, and the police go to take our report, you're going to give a different account than I'm going to give, just because you're human and I'm human, and when people, even though you see the exact same thing, you interpret it a different way.
Yeah, but we're talking about, what about a supernatural deity that can set up the shooting and you know, make us believe things?
Well, no.
Why not?
Why would a supernatural deity? Nothing,
you know,
that would...
Satan's supposed to be pretty powerful guy.
Well, okay, that's different. I mean, if you know, he were to do something terrible like that, then fine. But I mean, my point to that is that people, the Bible is, God spoke to people like Moses and Abraham, and these are their accounts that were written down in a timely manner and have been passed down. Just like my grandmother gave me, you know, her diary that she had when she was a little girl, and she was born in 1904. It's been passed down for generations.
You're getting back down to the fact that the whole thread here is faith, and the key question is how do you know whether it's good or bad?
You mean the Bible?
Yeah.
Being it?
You're saying that there's discrepancies in the different stories and stuff because they're written by people. How do you decide that this is something that was written by a person, and where it says that insolent kids should be stoned? Yeah, but again, it goes back to the choice of how do you decide when the Bible says that insolent kids should be stoned, that you decide that doesn't really apply, versus love thy neighbor, that does apply. How are you making decisions in the Bible to say this verse is true and good and follow it, this one not so much? Well,
because in some of the stoning, and when God had most of his wrath, which was in the Old Testament, because at that point there was no, as you know, Jesus was not, he hadn't won his time yet.
Yeah, he had sacrificed goats then.
He would have, you know, stories of how they, you know, if you were an adulterer, if I went and cheated on my husband, I would be stoned to death. Well, of course, we don't do that nowadays, but that was the custom back then. There again, that's actually more evidence to show you that these stories were taken down at a certain time in history when things were taking place and they had certain customs. It doesn't make what the meaning of it is not accurate and not purposeful.
So you're saying basically God changed his mind?
No, he didn't change his mind. I'm just saying that if I wrote a story today,
early on he said that if you do something bad, you have to be stoned or you have to sacrifice a goat to make me happy again. Now he's just saying that, well, forget all that other stuff before.
Things changed once Jesus came down and was Son as our Savior. Things weren't the same way as they were in the Old Testament. That's why we have the New Testament.
What happened to people in the Old Testament
It depends.
who didn't have the option of Jesus?
It didn't depend. God took up, a lot of people just took them up. They had no death. They actually just went to heaven. And then others perished.
Okay. All right.
I didn't mean
Wow.
to get off on all these tangents. I just wanted you guys to be able to know that, I mean, because the first 3 phone calls before me just weren't helping me out at all. I don't know who those people were. But I just, wanted to make the point that, please try not to confuse religion with Christianity.
Well, Christianity is a religion.
Yeah, it is a
It's
religion.
one of many religions.
But not all religions mean they're a Christian.
Of course,
That's
of course,
my
of
difference.
course.
And so and to people that don't know that, and you just say religion or the religious, then they go and flip the channel to E! Entertainment and see somebody who's a Scientologist. And, oh, yeah, by the way, we're going up into space whenever we all die. It's going to be great. You want to come? I mean, that's a religion. They're nonprofit. They get same perks as I, get at our church. But that doesn't make them Christian.
Yeah.
That was my point.
Well, yeah, we understand that there are definitely, obviously, other religions out there. We just don't see any religion offering any more evidence that it exists and it is the true way than any other religion.
Well, and again,
so Christianity gets put in the same bucket as other forms of Christianity.
I can see why you would say that, and my only comment to that, which is not a concrete evidence, I cannot show you written proof. My only belief is that I have faith in that when that day comes and the end of the times come, which God will choose, we won't. And when that happens, then at that point everybody will be like, "Oh yeah, she was right."
Yeah. But again, it's that whole going back to faith thing that we find kind of scary.
Yeah, and it is very scary
because it leads to this, this rapture stuff and this.
Andrea
Yates,
Yates,
the world to make Jesus come back.
You know what? And and no one can make him come back. I mean, he'll come back when it's his time.
But going back to the faith thing, I mean, Andrea Yates had faith. And that's kind of the scary part of it all.
But that doesn't mean that she was correct in her faith, and that doesn't mean that she was really a Christian.
That's true. But unless you have something to base your faith on, some kind of real evidence and solid, then
it's a slippery slope.
Then it's a very scary thing.
And I think he meant it for it to be that way. That's why we don't have any black and white.
So he meant for Andrea Yates.
I think that's why we have a lot of religious wars.
The previous comment that you made when you said that we don't have anything to actually see it when you want to base your faith on something. I can go base my faith on my dog if I want to and think that he's God. I mean, that doesn't mean I'm not crazy, and I mean
there is a connection there, God and dog. Flip it around.
No.
I'm teasing you a little bit.
They're laying right here listening.
I'm teasing you a little bit. Sorry.
No, that's okay. I don't mind. I mean that's part of it. I mean, I'm sure you guys have to defend a lot against people that are really crazy, Southern Baptist kind of Christians who really want to go after you and destroy what you're saying. And I think you're right. I mean, we're supposed to question things. That's why if the thoughts wouldn't pop in our head if it wasn't supposed to happen. It's just those who make the decision to, follow Christ and go, then, my favorite thing to tell people when they ask me is that if you're right, I lose nothing. But if I'm right, what do you lose?
Good old Pascal's wager.
Yeah, that's
we lose the planet, and that was the subject of that.
And also every religion typically has its idea.
See, when that happens, I won't be here, so that won't really concern me.
But that's the scary thing, though.
We care about the future as atheists.
But again, Pascal's wager. You brought up a good one. There are other religions out there that say you should believe them. God says don't believe any other religions.
Right. And all the other religions are false.
So how do you say that this one's right and that one's wrong? I could say that you will get eternal reward if you pay me $25 every single week.
Because the difference is that...
And you have no evidence, nothing to back it up, so just in case, you should pay me.
No, I think the difference is that religion is man-created. Man-created religion. He created...
We agree.
Lutheran. He created Baptist. He created Catholic. Whatever you want to... Whatever denomination you happen to be. But being a Christian is in the Bible, and I believe what's in the Bible.
Man created the Bible, too.
Per the fact that they either walked with Jesus in the New Testament and wrote down what they were told, or in the Old Testament, they wrote down what they saw and were told by God.
Behold, I come quickly, Jesus said, right?
Okay.
So somebody's a liar in all this. Jesus didn't come quickly. We're running out of time.
Yeah, we've got
I know, I don't want to keep you guys on the phone anymore. I just appreciate you kind of battling it out here with me for a little bit.
We appreciate your call.
You bring up some very, very interesting points, and I personally like to read things that are anti-Christian as much as I do Christian, because I like to always have a comeback for everything. So
exactly. Thinking about things is always good.
it's good for everyone.
Thank you very much for calling.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. All right, and thanks everybody for watching. Thank you
Thanks
very
to
much.
our callers, and sorry for the few callers we didn't get in.
Yes, if you did not get a chance to get on the air, or you have other comments that you think of during the week, tv@atheist-community.org. We do take emails, and if we get some good ones, we'll read them out over the air. Thanks everybody for watching. Have a great week, and we will